This is the Insider's Guide to Real Estate, and I'm your host, Victor Normand. Today we discuss solar. For many of us, solar power goes back to the mid-70s and the Arab oil embargo and images of solar panels on the roof of the White House. But it turns out the history of solar goes back further than that, to the middle of the 18th century. So with me this morning to talk about the history and to bring us up to date on what's going on with solar power is my guest, Amy Baudet. Amy works for Alt Energy in Boxborough, where they sell solar equipment to installers and homeowners, and she's very knowledgeable on the subject, and so let's get right to it. Amy, thanks for being here.
Thank you very much. So
Okay.
nice to be here.
All right, let's start off. There are two types of solar, solar hot water and solar electric. Essentially, what's the difference and how do they work?
Solar hot water is exactly as it sounds. It makes hot water from the sun, so it doesn't have any of the losses of converting the sun's energy to electricity. So it's incredibly efficient, very simple. It basically uses the heat of the sun to heat your water. Solar electricity actually uses a more complex system where it will convert the energy from the sun to electricity that you can use in your house.
Okay, but from the street, it looks the same. If you look up on somebody's roof, unless you look carefully, you can't really tell which is which.
Right. Solar water heating collectors, they usually are maybe 4 inches deep, so they're a little bit bigger depth-wise, but about the same. They're probably about 4 feet by 8 feet long. And generally you'll see maybe 2 or 3 of them on a house, maybe 4 if it's a big family. With solar electric, they're about the same size, but a little bit thinner, and you'll tend to have a lot more of them.
So most of the interest now seems to be in solar electric, but solar hot water is still available and still used.
Absolutely.
So let's get into the history of it. Using solar to heat hot water goes back pretty far. What's the origin of it?
It does. Back in 1891, believe it or not, in California, a gentleman patented a water heater that he specifically sold to husbands so that they could heat their water while their wives had the families away for the summer. So it was basically 25 gallons of water in a box up on a roof and gravity fed to feed your faucets.
So when you say husbands, you mean the wives or the women didn't mind putting kettles on the stove, but for a man that was too much trouble and they just used cold water, so now this innovation came along.
Exactly.
Great. In California, lots of sun in California, makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
But it collapsed. What happened in California?
What happened was they discovered natural gas in California, and so then it became a status symbol to have a gas water heater. So that industry really went away, but what they did was they sold it to Miami, where they didn't have natural gas. And so it grew like crazy. Early 1900s, over half the new houses in Miami had solar water heating on their roof.
So also Florida, lots of sunshine down there, great innovation, but that didn't last either. What happened in Florida?
World War II. When World War II came, they started restricting copper use, and there's a lot of copper in solar water heating. So they really had to put that on hold. After the war, when all the GIs came home, there was cheap electricity. So the electric company would go up and down every street, and any house they saw solar water heating on, they would go in and offer a free new-fangled electric water heater if they were allowed to take the solar water heating off the roof.
So it was kind of a conspiracy of sorts, but the marketplace just operating. No government subsidies back then. Everything had to work based on what consumers were willing to buy. Electricity became an attractive alternative, and down came the solar water heaters. So now we go for a period of time when things begin to change. I mentioned the Arab oil embargo. All of a sudden, energy got very expensive. Oil became very expensive and not available. National priority became energy self-sufficiency, alternative energy sources, and in the 70s, Jimmy Carter was president, decided to make a big show of it and put solar panels on the White House. Now, what's the story behind that?
Right. So wearing his sweater, telling everyone to do their national duty and put on a sweater instead of turning up the heat, he created a very, very strong rebate for people to put solar water heating on their house. And as you said, he actually had it put on the White House, and during the ceremony he said, this will either be seen as a commonplace, what everyone does, or it will be a fad that indicates a road not taken.
Okay, so the White House actually used the hot water from these
In their
panels. It was
kitchen.
more than
Absolutely.
they did.
Absolutely.
Okay, and so that went along, and did that actually stimulate the market? Was there a lot of interest?
Oh, it was huge. Solar water heating was everywhere, and they had improved it so that it was freeze resistant. So you were able to have it in places that weren't just warm. So solar water heating really took off across the country.
Okay, so solar water heating is basically just water running through pipes that's stored somewhere else
Right.
on the property. And getting more sophisticated, you can augment that heat so that if there was no sunshine, you could still have hot water.
Exactly. So really it's used as a preheater. So there'll be water and antifreeze running through the roof, and then through a heat exchanger, it will transfer that really 200-degree hot fluid, and it'll transfer it into your storage tank. And then that is used as a preheater. So the hot out from that goes to the cold in of your existing water heater.
Okay.
So instead of heating water from 50 degrees from the ground, you're going to be heating it from 80 or 100 or 120 and not even need to
So
reheat.
the result is lower energy costs.
Absolutely.
Now you mentioned 200 degrees. How does the sun doesn't, if you're standing out on the beach, it's hot, but not 200 degrees. How does it get to be?
Because it's in the copper and there's copper all surrounding it and it's in an insulated box, it really can concentrate the heat from the sun. And yeah, it can even get hotter than that. It's pretty impressive. And because it's pressurized, it actually increases the boiling point. So it's not going to boil, it's not going to create steam, it's just going to create very hot water.
Okay, so now on the news I often see pictures of the White House taken from higher elevations, and I don't see any solar panels up there. What happened to them?
When Carter left the office and Ronald Reagan came into office, he decided that when they were doing some repair on the roof, that they should remove the solar water heaters because he didn't believe it was necessary. There are some quotes of him saying it was a joke, and he had them removed and put in storage, and he removed all of the tax incentives that had been put in place.
Okay, so I know there's the story behind this. So those solar panels became historic items. Where are they now?
They actually sat in storage for a few years, and then Unity College in Maine got a whole bunch of them and used them for probably about 20 years to heat their water in their kitchen. And then when they hit their end of life, they actually have gone several different places. There was a road show where they brought one to the White House recently, trying to convince the White House to put solar back on. One is in the Jimmy Carter Presidential Museum or Presidential Library, and there's one in China in a museum showing the innovation of the United States back in the 70s.
Interesting. So you mentioned China. Now we all know, any of us who've looked into solar know that the Chinese have gotten into solar, photoelectric solar in a very big way. And also solar has been revived here because primarily the need for alternative energy, but heavy government subsidies. So when did the recent subsidies come into play?
So when Reagan removed the subsidies, 98% of solar install companies went out of business. So they really did need the rebates to get that young industry started and going again. So during President Bush, the second Bush, his administration did in fact bring another rebate into being. And there's a 30% tax credit, federal tax credit. And with that stimulation, that actually really got the industry up and running again. And it wasn't just solar hot water at that time. So now solar electric was becoming more viable and more affordable and more mainstream.
Okay, so the subsidies apply to both hot water and electric. So it seems like, and also there are state subsidies in various states, including Massachusetts.
Right.
So, and they're needed so it's an effort on the part of government recognizing that the long-term interest of consumers is served by having in place a solar industry,
Right.
and the subsidy is needed to keep it in place.
Right.
How confident is the solar industry, how confident is your business that those subsidies are going to stay there?
The federal subsidy is scheduled to expire the last day of 2016, so we've got another 2 years of it. The federal subsidy for commercial systems is scheduled to go down to 10% after that, and we're not quite sure what's going to happen to the residential one. That may or may not go away. The good news is that the effect of having these subsidies is that the volume of installs really went up, and so with supply and demand and high volumes, the price has plummeted to install solar. I've been doing this industry for 7 years, and it used to be about $10 or $12 a watt to install solar. It's down less than $4 a watt now, so the price really has come down enough that people should be able to see cost savings even without the subsidies.
Without the subsidy. And the subsidies are capital subsidies, initial, so you're not, if you're a homeowner who installs solar, you're not dependent on continuing subsidies to make it economically feasible. Your subsidies are all essentially upfront.
Mostly. So there's lots of different types of incentives available. The federal subsidy is, yes, a 30% federal tax credit, so you can just take 30% off what you owe the feds. The states have several different ways that they're doing it, mostly through the electric company, and so you will initially be given a check for a certain amount of money per watt. And there's also something called the SREC, the Solar Renewable Energy Credit. Now the SREC is actually given to you from a wholesale market because electric companies are required to have a certain percentage of their electricity generated from green sources. If they don't make that amount of green, they're able to take credit for all of the residential ones. So they'll actually pay you to make some of their electricity green.
Okay, so that sounds like, so you've interested me as a homeowner in solar electric, but what steps do I take? How do I figure out what I need, and how do I figure out whether it's worthwhile for me to do it?
The first step is figuring out how much power you use. We'll get calls all the time and say, oh, how much do I need for a 3,000 square foot house? I don't know. How much power do you use? So look at your electric bill. You'll get a monthly bill from the electric company, and it will say right on it each month how many kilowatt hours you use. So that's kWh. And from that, we'd be able to figure out, based on the amount of sunshine in your area, how much solar you would need.
Okay, so but some months during the year I use a lot more electricity than others. It's better to have a full year's usage.
Right. So the nice thing with doing solar electric these days, it's just called grid-tied solar, where you make as much power as you can each month or each day, and if you use as much as you make, that's great. That's how much less you have to buy from the electric company. If you make more than you use, you can actually sell it back to the electric company, and your meter will run backwards, and then you can buy it back later at the same price. So really, you're just kind of going backwards and forwards. The nice thing is, in the summer, you're going to be making more power than you're going to be making in the winter up here. A lot of people in New England, their heaviest loads are air conditioning, which is in the summer when you're making more. So
right.
It does work out quite nicely as long as the electric company allows you to carry any extra credits monthly. So your great production in the summer can compensate for your bad production in the winter.
So the electric company is not going to send you a check for the electric power they're buying from you, but they'll carry a credit balance on your bill.
It varies based on the electric company. So when you connect a grid-tied system, you'll create a net metering agreement with the electric company, and it will lay out their rules. Some companies will do a check, most do not, but most people actually don't size the system so that they have an excess. Really, what your target is just reduce your bill. You don't have to make 100% of your power. Just make some and add conservation to it so you're using less. With what you're making, you'll be buying less, and you can really see substantial reduction in your electric bill.
Okay, so it sounds like there's some math involved to figure out what you use, what it's going to cost you to install the system, and then what you have been paying, and then some kind of payback period. What's reasonable for a consumer to expect in terms of payback?
That again depends on the incentives available, and with the federal 30% back, goes a long way. And then with the state, a lot of the electric companies around here, it'll probably equal another 25% of the cost. So if you are getting that and then add the SRECs on top, you're seeing maybe 5 or 6 year payback.
Really? So that seems like a short period of time for what could be a significant investment.
Right.
Now, one way to finance that investment, if you have cash, that's great. Home equity loans seem to make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Some of the least expensive loans available to consumers are home equity loans,
Right.
and this would be a good place to put it. From a real estate perspective, if I've got solar panels on the roof of my house, I'm hoping that adds value to my house. If I'm trying to convince someone to buy my house, I've got solar panels, what might I say to them that would make them agree that I've added value to that house?
Your overall cost of ownership of the house is going to be significantly less, because just from day one, your electric bill will be a quarter, half, 3/4 of what you normally would have. So you're going to be able to afford more house actually for the same amount of money because of your lower cost of ownership, your utility bills. Berkeley University has done a study that did in fact show that property values significantly increased with solar. And this is mostly with a grid-tied system where you're just connected to the grid and doing that back and forth.
Yep. Very simple installation, essentially.
Very simple, not a lot of equipment.
Okay. So, and I might show a prospective buyer my electric bills at certain times of the year will show a negative balance on it, and that'll be impressive. But I can imagine a prospective buyer looking up and saying, I'm worried about the roof leaking with all that equipment up there. So what's the answer to that?
The nice thing is, generally, before you even install solar, you'll take a look at the roof, or the installer will take a look at the roof and say, yes, this roof is in good shape, it's a good time to install it. Or if you're thinking about, oh, the roof probably needs to be replaced in 5 to 10 years, well, maybe we'll just bring the schedule forward and replace the roof first. The installer will then use very nice flashings that will protect any roof penetrations from leaking. And the nice thing is, because these panels are actually on top of the roof, it's shading your roof. So it's going to actually make the shingles last longer because it's keeping it out of the sun. It's even going to keep your house a little bit cooler because it's shading the roof.
So there's some ancillary benefits
Absolutely.
to doing that. So it seems like it's a better installation if the solar panels are put up in conjunction with a new roof. In a perfect world.
Yeah, if the roof needs it. If you have a new roof, if your roof is only 5 or 10 years old, no, I mean, you're fine. But if it looks like, if you've been thinking, boy, I should probably get around to that sometime, now's the time.
Now's the time to do it. All right, let's get a little more complicated. Let's say I live in a community where we have power outages, and I'm saying, well, great, now I've got these solar panels, so at least I'll have some electricity if the power goes out. What's wrong with that?
One of the safety requirements for solar electric systems, for just a straight grid-tied system, is if the grid goes out, UL 1741 says you go out as well, because you don't want to accidentally send power out on the lines when the linemen are out there repairing and they think the line is dead and you're sending power out there.
Okay, makes sense.
So when the grid goes out, you go out.
But isn't there any way around that where I'm generating all this power and I should be able to use it?
Right.
What's
So
solution?
there's a system called grid-tied battery backup, where same as usual, you're making all your power, you're selling in any extra back, but you're also using that power to keep a battery bank all charged up and ready to go. If the grid goes out, what happens is there's an internal transfer switch, and it just immediately switches over to your critical loads. So you would have decided when you have this installed, my critical loads are my refrigerator, my lights, my furnace blower, whatever I really need to have going when the power goes out. you're not going to be powering your hot tub. You're not going to be having your spa going. You know, you really do want to just power a subset. So it does add money and complications to the system, but it's actually very, very popular, especially every time we have one of these crazy, 100-year storms every 6 to 12 months.
Right. Yep.
We really do see a lot of interest in grid-tied battery backup.
Okay, so it's not unlike having a generator where you would switch over to your
Right.
generator.
It's a solar generator.
Could you have both a generator and solar backup batteries?
Yep, you can. You can absolutely. Again, every time you start adding a little bit, it does add to the complexity, but absolutely, even without a battery-based system, you can have a straight grid tied with a generator, and it just switches the solar out of the system while the generator's running. Likewise, if you do have a battery-based system, you can have the generator charging up your batteries and powering your critical loads. So there's all sorts of different ways you can go about it.
Yeah, all sorts of. If you're so inclined and you've got the resources, there are
Right.
lots you can do
Right,
to
absolutely.
take advantage of this. Now, I know that in your business you sell equipment all over the place, and I read on your website that you sold in every continent. So
We
tell me a
have.
little about that.
We have. We're a web-based store, so we get calls from all over the world. We've had scientists doing Arctic ice studies where they've used our equipment to power some of their devices. We have orphanages in Haiti. We have hospitals in Nigeria. A lot of people in the islands, the Virgin Islands. Electricity is many times more expensive in the islands because they have to generate it all with these big generators. So it makes a lot of financial sense to have solar electricity. So we've got them everywhere.
So you've been doing this for a while now. At some point, do these solar panels need to be replaced?
The solar electric panels are warranted for either 20 or 25 years, depending on the brand. So those will be guaranteed that in 20 years from now, it will still be putting out 80% of what it put out when you first installed them. And so then you'll just even have longer life than that. Some of the electronics, they're often warranted for maybe 10 years. And so perhaps some components like the inverter that converts the DC to the AC that you use in your house, that may eventually need to be replaced, but that's just a small subset.
So if I have to replace panels, the framework is still there, so it's a much less expensive proposition
right.
than the initial installation.
Exactly.
So if I'm going to replace I have to figure out, they could last longer than the 20 years.
Oh, they
certainly
will.
How do I know that I'm still getting 80% output from my panels? How can I tell?
The inverter will actually have a meter that will show you how much power it's generating. So you'll be able to tell. And a lot of them actually have these really cool remote metering capabilities where you can look at your smartphone and see
Really?
how much power you're generating right now or how much you've generated over the day, the month, the year.
Well, it all sounds good. So tell me, as a consumer, I've met you, but I don't know anyone else to go to. How does a consumer start out? Who do they talk to that they can trust to have good information and all of the available information?
There's an organization, a national organization called NABCEP. It's the North American Board of Certified Energy Practitioners, and they have a website that you can go to and look for NABCEP certified installers. And there's a very rigorous procedure you have to go through. You have to have experience with installs. There's a lot of classes you have to take. There's a very difficult test and that has a lot of NEC code questions on it. So it's quite a process to go through.
So if I found an installer, I've got he's certified, I've got good recommendations, can I expect that installer to be fully up to speed on all the subsidies that might be available?
Yes, because it is very complicated and different per state, and not only just per state, per electric company. The electric company, the installer that you're going to be using, you do want to make sure that they're familiar with all of the red tape and the hoops they have to jump through for your particular area.
Okay, and they could help me do the math to determine what it's going to cost me, what the payback is and all that, and the available subsidies.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
great.
they'll figure that all out for you.
Right. So there's one little flaw in terms of the subsidies, and that deals with municipal power companies don't participate in some of the rebate plans?
Right. So some of the state rebates are funded by a renewable energy fee that's on everybody's electric bill. So if you get your electricity from a small municipal electric company, they may not be part of that pool of money. So you do need to check to make sure that your particular municipality does pay into that fee.
Okay, but there's still the federal subsidy
Right,
is still available
exactly.
out there. So any last thoughts that you may have to consumers? Obviously you're a champion. Your tag is Solar Queen. I saw that on your business cards. What can you tell consumers that is encouraging about solar electric?
The solar electricity is really, really taken off worldwide, and it's growing incredibly. Whenever you want to look at how to save on your utility bills, conservation is always best. Put your first money into conservation, 100%, that's going to be your biggest payback. After you've conserved as much money, as much electricity as you can, then start taking a look at solar. So look at your roof. Do you have a good south-facing roof? Is it shaded? Do you have obstacles like dormers and everything on your south roof? If you've got a nice south or south-ish facing roof, nice and sunny, you're definitely a candidate. And give an installer a call, and they can do the money for you and see if it's worthwhile.
Right, and it doesn't have to be on your roof. If you've got a big yard, you can put it out there.
Excellent point. There's nice ground mounts you can do. I've seen people do these lovely carports, so you get the added bonus of protecting your car from the elements and while it's generating electricity. Some people will put an electric car in a solar carport, so you're getting the free fuel from the sun charging your car right there.
Sounds like a great idea.
It is.
Amy, thanks so much for being here. You've been very informative and brought us into the inside of solar electric and solar hot water. Thanks again.
Thank you.
So that's our show for today. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.